DeMar DeRozan found his new home yesterday after signing a 3-year, $75 million deal with the Sacramento Kings that was part of a 3-team sign-and trade, which we'll talk about on today's episode. We're also going to look at how now, after the trade, the Chicago Bulls have filled their 15th and final roster spot and what's ahead of the Chicago Bulls with the remainder of offseason. We're into all that, plus the mailbag, right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. So, it is now official. DeMar DeRozan is a Sacramento King, and he does that on a 3-year, $75 million deal. We still don't know the exact details of the deal. We did find out that the third year is a partial guarantee, so the first 2 years of that deal are fully guaranteed. So that means that DeMar DeRozan is not going to get back in free agency next offseason, try to recoup some of the money that he lost. So basically, instead of signing a 2-year, $80 million deal with the Chicago Bulls, he signs a 3-year, $75 million deal with the Sacramento Kings. And what they're getting in DeMar DeRozan is still a player that is hugely effective. At being 17th in the league in scoring, they're getting somebody who can come in, help be a clutch player for them, something that, De'Aaron Fox already is. He pairs now with Sabonis, De'Aaron Fox, in a roster that I think is a really solid roster overall for the Sacramento Kings. They already won 46 games last year. They brought back Malik Monk on top of everything else. They're hoping for development from guys like Keegan Murray, of course, to take a step up. And I think now that they've kept Kevin Huerter as well, you look at that and being a player as well that, now they keep some three-point shooting. And DeMar DeRozan may actually help Kevin Huerter get back to shooting, a high-volume three like he did the year prior. He took a bit of a step back last year. Or the Kings kids still look to move some things, to free some things up. They also drafted Devin Carter, who we already know is a guy who, as a defender, he can stretch the floor, also as a solid point guard. Him playing with DeMar DeRozan some. So, the Kings have made their decision. They've now brought in DeMar DeRozan. And, I, for one, don't think that it's that bad. And this whole saga of DeMar, finding, the money that he had to, having to go through what he went through in free agency, like he's bad. He's not a bad player. As a matter of fact, somebody else who signed a big deal this season, when you look at Paul George, DeMar DeRozan's numbers are better than Paul George. Now, Paul George is a much better defender as well. But, the saga of DeMar DeRozan has now reached this conclusion. He goes to the Sacramento Kings. The Chicago Bulls get Chris Duarte and 2 second-round picks. And we'll talk a little bit about more why they got Chris Duarte back, even though, a player like Harrison Barnes ends up going to the Spurs, and they get an unprotected pick swap, which it's like if you were protecting a pick swap, it's like, okay, what are you doing here? So they get to swap picks with the Sacramento Kings. I would think that the Kings pick for the next handful of years is going to be worse better or worse. What are we looking for? It's going to be a lower pick than the Spurs' own pick. So we'll see what that pick swap ends up entailing. That's basically just to get them something else on the books in the deal. The Bulls also create a $16 million trade exception that won't expire for another year. So while the Bulls are right now about $4.5 million beneath the luxury tax, they have until next offseason, in which the Bulls' next offseason could be about $60 million below the luxury tax. So that could be something that they do use to add to the team. And so I know that a lot of Bulls fans are kind of questioning, why couldn't we get a first? When you look at the market for DeMar DeRozan, we weren't going to get a first. Some had hoped that maybe the Bulls were going to get their own first-round pick, the protections removed off that, to where that we can keep our first-round pick outright in 2025. The Spurs weren't nearly as incentivized to do all of that. They were trying to help facilitate getting their former player, DeMar. Wouldn't be surprised if Greg Popovich, the Spurs overall as an organization, not surprised that they would do something like that to help a former player. So, that's what it comes down to. The Bulls get Chris Duarte, who apparently some people think that Chris Duarte is a player that the Bulls could use. So the people who've been saying that Chris Duarte could be a starter, don't get me wrong. I understand that Chris Duarte wasn't all rookie, second team his rookie season. And since then, he hasn't really progressed. He's 27 years old on a roster that we have clearly already said is going younger. And since that rookie season where he averaged 13 points, yeah, he had some big games over that time, but he's averaged 7.9 points his second year, 3.9 his second year with the Kings, only starting 11 games. At some points, 10-day contract players were playing more than, that's a bit of exaggeration, but they were playing more than Chris Duarte. Chris Duarte isn't a target in this trade at all. He's filler to help fill the deal, and he may be something that the Bulls do look to add into other deals as they continue to go younger, and if they make other moves for Zach LaVine or things like that. But I said I was going to talk about why the Bulls only could acquire Chris Duarte. So it actually came out yesterday as well that while most NBA deals get a 5% increase year after year. So when Patrick Williams signed his $90 million, 5-year, $90 million deal, it was thought that that contract would get those 5% increases year over year and start at a much lower rate than what it ended up doing. So it ends up being a flat contract. So all those years are flat for Patrick Williams, which you don't see that a whole hell of a lot in modern NBA contracts. But so that means that the Bulls had even less money than initially thought. It was thought before this trade that the Bulls could acquire about a contract of up to $14 million. Well, with Patrick Williams' contract being a flat contract, they actually could only acquire up to $10 million. So that definitely priced them out of Kevin Huerter, priced them out of even Harrison Barnes. And so the Bulls weren't going to get that type of money back for in this. And that may be why we heard, of course, that the Bulls didn't want to acquire any contracts back initially, something that we heard. And so they do acquire a contract back in Chris Duarte that's $5.8 million. So nothing too crazy when it comes down to it. And then, like I said, with Patrick Williams and his money, it definitely impacted that trade as well for the Chicago Bulls, because now they have less money to come down to it. And, it just is what it is. And, at this point, this is the Bulls roster. The Bulls roster now sits at a full 15 players, which means that they lose some flexibility. Now, I say some because there's other things that they can do. Ernola Batum is an non-guaranteed deal, fully non-guaranteed, I think, up until the trade deadline. So the Bulls could theoretically waive Ernola Batum if they need to take back additional salary, additional contracts back in a deal. So, for example, they're trading out Zach LaVine. The team's sending 2 contracts back instead of 1. The Bulls then would have to theoretically cut Ernola Batum so they can absorb that second contract. Doesn't mean that they can't buy out that player and then end up signing Batum back or something like that. But that is something interesting to watch, that now with the Bulls roster at a full 15 is what do the Bulls do next? Do they move a Nikola Vucevic, right? Do they try to do that? We'll talk about that more here in a second. But so the Bulls have no open roster spots. They only have one open two-way roster spot that's probably going to come down to either Henry Drell or Marcus Domask from Illinois, which is their undrafted rookie that they signed. And they sit about $4.5 million beneath the luxury tax at this point as well. So all that means and shapes up that, the Bulls, for the most part, our offseason is almost done. And I think that, of course, they're still going to be looking for trades for Zach LaVine. It's going to be a lot more difficult with not having an open roster spot, but them absorbing this contract and filling that final roster spot, maybe the Bulls just coming to the consensus that Zach LaVine may start off his season with the Chicago Bulls. Now, I'm not saying that the Bulls aren't going to try to pound the pavement and find a deal for Zach LaVine between now and the start of the season. They could be searching, and very well a third team could get involved to where the Bulls don't have to take back, more than one contract back. That may be a little bit more difficult, but there are some teams still with cap space that they could be looking to absorb something. But in that case, the Bulls may have to attach an asset, and that's what the more interesting thing is. It seems like the Bulls are going to have to attach either a future first or maybe the Portland pick or something to get rid of Zach LaVine. And the Bulls at that point have to ask themselves, is it worth trading Zach LaVine if that's what you have to give up, considering you're going younger and trying to keep your assets? Are the Bulls going to hope that maybe some things change at the trade deadline for the team? And we'll see what happens with that. So, Bulls full 15-man roster. Like I said, $4.5 million beneath the luxury tax. They still have their biannual exception. They still have part of the mid-level exception. They now have a trade player exception as well. The biannual doesn't expire, so even if they don't use the biannual exception next year, they can use it use it this year, then they can use it next year. The trade player exception doesn't expire till this time next year, which puts them well into free agency, so they could look to acquire somebody with that. We'll see. But in getting 2 second-round picks back, they just gotten more assets they can use to sweeten the pot in any potential deal that they do make. So we'll see what the Bulls bring with that. So now the Bulls move forward, reportedly still looking for deals for Zach LaVine and possibly Nikola Vucevic. And the question is will they be successful in it? To hear things like the Bulls look at Zach LaVine returning to this team or being on the roster at the start of the season as the worst case scenario, they're still going to probably be looking to explore that. But I think now, you guys know I've been saying for a while that, once DeMar DeRozan is off this roster, that it does free up Nikola Vucevic to be more effective offensively because he can get back to getting to his spots. It doesn't change what he does defensively. He's still going to be a black hole defensively. This team is going to be bad defensively next season. But he does bring somebody that, as long as you can feed the post, and with having Josh Giddey as a playmaker, you have him as a big that he can feed in the post. I think the Vooch can fit in well with these young guys. He's not going to run with them, right? That's not going to be, he's going to be a trailer, or he's going to be the person that starts the fast break and getting defensive rebounds. But we'll see what the Bulls do. All eyes now on the Bulls to see what they do between now and the start of the season. And now with filling your 15th roster spot, what does that mean for Javonte Green? What does that mean for Ernest Batum if you need to cut something? So the Bulls still, while their roster's full, still have some questions. We are very, very guard heavy. Still have, with Adama Sanogo coming back and being able to play in over 60 games, even on a two-way contract, they have some possible big man depth there. Patrick Williams is still going to clearly be playing the 4. Torrey Craig's still there. If they don't decide to move him or include him in another deal. And unfortunately, the bald-headed hoe Javon Carter is still on the roster as well. But outside of those things, the Bulls roster is pretty much set. And we'll see what they do between now and the start of the season. I'm going to throw this question to you guys. Do you feel like the Chicago Bulls will find trade partners for Zach LaVine and or Nikola Vucevic before the start of the season? Or do you think that this is primarily the roster now that the Chicago Bulls are going with? And how many wins do you have this roster of the Chicago Bulls getting? Let me know what you guys think on all that down below. All right, it is Sunday, so that means it is Mailbag Day. Let's go ahead and get into the voicemails. This one's from Jamal.
What's up, Haize? Your boy Jamal back again, another voicemail. So I'm getting a little bit back to being consistent with these things, but I got 3 minutes. Let's get into this. So we are hearing rumors, of course, that the Bulls are talking with the Sacramento Kings about doing the sign and trade for DeMar DeRozan. Of course, there's the talk that the Bulls don't want to take on any major contracts in order to trade DeMar DeRozan. So, we might be getting a third team involved with this. I've heard some rumors of it being the Spurs. I think you actually reported that at one point in time. It's really interesting how this season has gone, or this offseason, I should say, has gone when it comes to trading, Zach, trying to trade Vooch, trying to trade DeMar, even, and things like that. I feel like you said it best. This is a lesson to be learned by the Bulls front office, that sometimes you have to know when to, sell and when to trade somebody, because their value might not always be the same afterwards, and then you're getting pennies on the dollar by comparison, or you're stuck in a situation that you don't want to be in. And that's kind of where the Bulls are at right now. We clearly don't want DeMar to stay here. We want to get younger. We don't, as much as I would like Zach LaVine on the team, because I'm a big Zach LaVine fan, clearly the relationship between them is fractured. Vooch, we understand there ain't no real point in keeping Vooch here either, because, he's not going to be happy. Why would he want to go through a rebuild, this is one of those situations where we're kind of looking at it as like, even me as a Bulls fan, where I was like, no, I don't want to trade Zach. I don't want to trade, this person, that person. I want to keep this team solid and keep it together. I'm now looking at it as like, damn, we should have traded them when we had the chance. That deal that we had, 6 months ago, where we was getting this, and this would have been perfect. You're never going to trade a superstar for a superstar. That rarely ever happens, if not at all. So, it is what it is. I can't wait to see what the Bulls end up doing and what we look like going into this first game of the season. I'm so excited for Summer League. Let's see what these young bucks got going on. Other than that, see Red, go Bulls, peace.
Well, since you left this voicemail, DeMar DeRozan is officially on his way to the Sacramento Kings. And yeah, the Bulls have gotten younger. They've gotten considerably younger. I haven't done the math yet, but I know they before the DeMar trade, they were hovering around an average age of 25.3. So they've knocked off almost 2.5 years off their age from where they were last year. And so they've gotten considerably younger. They have picked a direction. Now they have to see that direction through. That's it. And they have to, over the course of seeing that through, they have to develop guys. They have to get guys, put guys in the right situation and environment to where they can develop to the best versions of themselves. That's what they have to do, and we'll see what happens there. Now, you said Vooch being unhappy on a rebuild. I think Vooch is the one player that I don't worry. Like, European players are typically very loyal to their teams unless they're traded, right? So I think that Vooch, as long as he's given the opportunity, I don't see Vooch as like being a ring chaser or anything like that, but you never know. Like I said, things happen differently to players as they approach over 30. He's probably on his last big deal, so maybe he looks at that and says, yeah, eventually, not that he'll request a trade, but maybe he'll welcome one. So we'll see what happens there. But overall, yes, the Bulls roster has gotten considerably younger. They're going to be playing faster. They're going to be attacking more. Still lack three-point shooting. Defense has gotten worse, and still no rim protection. But we'll see what comes along with that. All right, let's get into this next voicemail. This one's from Corn.
Hey, what's the word, King? G-Red Nation. It's Corn. Let's get right into it. This is all about Debo, man. Shout out to Debo, man. I know I say it a lot, you know what I mean? We have a way being Raiders fan. And excuse me if you hear traffic. Hey, I'm on my morning walk and shit, so excuse me on that one. Real talk, though, man. Once a Bull, always a Bull, and I stand by when it comes to him. Toronto, Drake, he's our guy. That's our guy, and I stand by it. The memories he gave me as a Bulls fan, the back-to-back game winners, the king of the fourth, DeMar delivered in all aspects as a Bull. No complaints here, man. Did we win? Did we do? No. So if that matters to you, I guess you could say whatever, it's a fail. But to me, no. It's a dub. And more personal to me, being from California and knowing, just seeing the evolution of Debo, real reason why we call it Debo. If you know, you know. Especially out here in Cali, if you know, you know. It's the reason why we really call him Debo out here. And always gonna be appreciative. Always gonna be a fan. I'm always gonna be rooting for you, King. There's nothing much more I could say, man. Guys like him, and I know some of y'all go turn with face, but I speak for us in California. We love him as much as we love Kobe. He's really one of our guys, man. He's really idolized and loved, and I'm gonna miss him, man. Even though I'm ready to move on and ready to get this new movement, man. I'm gonna miss Cornrow Kobe, man. That's my dog, man. Like, real talk, like guys like him, Aaron O'Flalo, Tyson Chandler, just to name a few California legends, man, that I truly respect, that are my peers that I some way look up to. So appreciate them, love them, blessings.
DeMar's time as a Bull, and here's the thing, I will always remember the moments that DeMar gave us finally. Like, he was one of the best clutch players in the league over his time here. The king of the fourth, as you said, having some big performances, breaking Wilt Chamberlain records. But as I've been saying for a while now, DeMar DeRozan earned another contract. He earned and showed that he still belongs in this NBA. There shouldn't be any question of that. But that didn't mean that it had to be on the Chicago Bulls. And that's ultimately what we've seen the Bulls do as well. Like, they offered him a contract. Didn't get signed. It is what it is. He moved on. That's just what it comes down to. And it gave the Bulls an opportunity to really evaluate the roster and realize, no, we have to go in this different direction. And so, I'm glad that DeMar did join a team that is still going to be fighting, clawing their way in that Western Conference. It's DeMar DeRozan. No, it's the second time in the Western Conference. I almost forgot about the Spurs years. And so they're going to grind it out. And I'm glad that DeMar got to go to a team that he can still compete for. I'm glad that he didn't have to take a deal like with the Detroit Pistons or something. Like, his time here in Chicago, it naturally came to its conclusion because we saw it. And it's not on him. It's not on any of the players. It's on the totality of the situation. Injuries, lack of development, lack of pivoting by the front office, all types of things happen. But DeMar's time here, I will always remember fondly for the player that he was, but the team's success just did not have the level of success that we wanted to over that time. We just didn't have it. And that's just what it comes down to. All right, let's get into the next voicemail. This one's from TJ.
Yo, what's up, Haize? It's TJ, man. So I had just recently seen the roster for the summer league. Honestly, I got a few thoughts, and I also got a question for you. So some big things I want to see, basically take away from the summer league, is I truly do want to see Julian Phillips. I want to see Matas, and I want to see Sanogo dominate. Like, oh, honestly, I want to see them really going at them boys. I want them to go crazy, putting up big numbers, looking good out there, and just playing like they better than them. Like, for real, I want them to basically just stun on them boys, for real. And also, who on the summer league roster do you think could be like a surprise player that can end up getting one of the last few two-way deals that we have available? Who is someone that you could be like a dark horse to get it, and also someone that you want to get it? And what do you think about the Bulls roster or the summer league roster? What do you think about them? Like, how far do you think they're gonna go in the summer league? You think they're gonna potentially bring home some sort of jewelry to the city, even if it's just a summer league championship? I mean, something better than nothing, I guess. But yeah, see Ray, y'all. Have a blessed one. Peace.
Summer League should be exciting. Matas Bucilis, Julian Phillips, Adama Sanago, as you mentioned, all guys who, we'll see how hard they go in Summer League. Like, I know I get where you're saying they should dominate it, but we'll see. I mean, you could be in for a Summer League championship like we had before, right? You never know with that. But I like those guys. And, Matas Bucilis is a guy who he does take this very seriously as far as, like, competing. I love the mindset that Bucilis has. And he is, a pick that could have been easily top 5. And he's now here on the Chicago Bulls. He gets to stay as close home, basically. And so Julian Phillips as well was growing towards the end of that season and got injured. Now we get to see him come back, and Adama Sanogo dominated the G League in what he was able to do. So that growth is going to be important to see in Summer League. And they get more opportunities to get more reps and trying to show and prove that they deserve a spot as far as in that heavy rotation for the Chicago Bulls. Now, as far as players else that look out for, it's just Domask and Henry Drell. Those are the two. Those are the two that are going to be competing for the final two-way contract spot. And that's not going to be solved in Summer League. That's going to go up through training camp. But these are the two guys with bringing in Domask, who's a very similar player to Henry Drell, not necessarily the shooter that Henry Drell is Marcus Domask, but he's a guy who can get it done. He can outright get it done. And so, the Bulls signing him as an undrafted free agent, clearly to me says that he's meant to be on that G League team. They're going to see if they can develop something out of him. 5-year senior in college, and he was productive every year and got better every single year. So him and Henry Drell, who Drell has been here since 2022. This is now his going into his third season with us. That comes start if a team doesn't see a player maybe making or competing for their actual roster after 3 years of being kind of in their G League system, that's where some teams look to move on, and the Bulls could be looking to do that as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if that ends up being the case. But Henry Drell, Domas, those are the two to really look out for, and in my opinion, watch out for as the Bulls Summer League starts. And Summer League is going to, we'll cover Summer League. For those that this is your first year, we've gotten a lot of new subscribers here over the last few weeks. For those that are new here, we cover Summer League, and we'll be live probably after those games, and we'll be breaking it down, who stood out, who did not. Fun times. All right, let's get into the last voicemail for today. This one's from Reginald.
Hey, this is Reginald from Columbus, Georgia. I have sort of like a weird question that I don't know if you might be able to answer or not, but why is it that you think it's guys who come into the league find it easier to improve their offense than their defense? I mean, when I look at guys like Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, and probably a couple of dozen other guys that I just can't think of right at the moment. But just use those two as an example. When they came to the league, they had some problems with their offense, but they worked it out to the point where they became efficient scorers, but their defense never improved. Like, even when they were rookies, first, second year players, they took the time and jacked up 10,000 shots a day, but did they ever practice on staying in front of the man or reading passing lanes to get steals or timing guys jump to get blocked or find a way to get rebounds so the minute the ball is in the air to attack the basket? I'm asking that because I'm looking at these guys who are making 30, 40, some cases $50 million and have obvious deficiencies, and thinking like they trained for years to improve their offense game. Why didn't they put this much effort in defensively? I mean, they had coaches, they had trainers, they had. I mean, other know guys who were specialists on the teams they were on. Wasn't there some guy, some great offensive talent who they would go one-on-one with during practices? I ask this because it's getting harder and harder to see like the next great two-way player. Where back in the day of Jordan, every team had at least 2 or 3 guys who would say you didn't have to take off the court because they weren't a liability on either side of the ball, really. But it's just something that's popped in my head. But what's your opinion on that? Are guys not properly training to be good defensive players? Thanks.
This is a really good question, Reggie. Why don't players work? Here's the thing. I always say I don't assume that they don't work. Some players just aren't going to be good defensively. And I think that outside of that, whether they put in the work or not, offense is the thing that gets you paid. Offense is the thing that gets you to stick around the roster. Defense can too, but I think we've seen the league prioritize shooting, offense, things like that. And so it's easier for a player that has a solid offensive game to look to refine that than for players that are so defensive, even though defense comes down to effort. So much of defense is really just effort. Basketball IQ plays a part into it as well for the elite defenders, but to just be a solid NBA defender, it really just comes down to effort. But I think ultimately, just to bare bones answer your question, why do more players work and round out their offense? Simply put, offense gets you noticed. Offense gets you paid. Offense gets you things. And so, especially if you're a well-rounded offensive player, you can shoot, you can get to the rim, things like that. Those are typically things that get you paid in the NBA, and players focus on that. Trainers focus on that as well. So great question, Reginald. Probably a pretty much more bare bones answer than what you may expect there, but I just think it's that. They just get you paid. And so, unfortunately, what we've seen, though, is the players that become elite are two-way players. Like, if you can be a two-way player while still having a really good efficiency offensively, that also gets you paid. That gets you the big money. But the thing that keeps you around the league, we've seen scorers that can't really do much else stay around the league for a long time. But I wish that we had more. Like, that's what European players do. They work on all aspects of things. And so, to be a player that can compete on both sides of the ball is always best, especially makes it easier for your team to build. So let's hope that the Bulls that we have now work on both sides of the ball. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, and hopefully we've improved that to you this offseason. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. We're a little over 800 subscribers away from hitting the goal of 20,000 subscribers before the start of the season. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. In exchange for that, I'll be delivering the best, most consistent, and overall just fun Bulls content that you're going to find all on YouTube or on the podcast side. But thank you guys again. Go Bulls. See Red. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.